Here's this. Okay. Well, hello and welcome back. And it is now 2022, and welcome to our first Story Lab of the season. We have all our great board members to thank for pulling together many of our programs, and particularly Artem. So I am delighted that he is the kickoff speaker for a very exciting year that we have planned for everybody. We will be meeting virtually once again for an annual conference that's going to be happening at the end of July. And I brought some notes so I can tell you the right dates. The conference is 27th to the 31st of July. And the theme is connecting for tomorrow. And then we also had some great news where we now know who our pre-conference speaker is going to be. And that is Jerome DeRoy, the CEO of Narrative. And his conversation is going to be around tomorrow's leaders need value-based stories. So let's take it over to Artem now, who's here to present his case studies threatening corporate cultures. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to hear that Jerome will be with us. He's an amazing speaker and a very interesting person to talk to. So welcome everyone. It's really pleasant to see you all. I hope you're all in good health and good shape after the New Year's. And tonight I wanted to share with you a case study, which is based on one of the projects I did last year. We know that story is a great thing to work with culture, because if culture is the way we do things here, story is the only language to discuss how we do things here and why we do things the way we do, and make it conscious. So that said, let me tell you a story of how it went and how it was last year, because this case study actually began when we last met each other, because my previous lab was in March. And in late March, I had a conference called Story Fire Leadership, which ran for 5 days. And a couple of weeks after the conference, I got hit by a client, and she just called out of nowhere and said, Artyom, I need your advice on working with corporate culture. And I'm like, oh, yes, now I'm going to sell her the idea that stories is a great tool to work with culture. And I'm just starting to pump up my presentation skills, and I'm selling. And she goes like, okay, Artyom, I was there at the conference. You can just skip this part. Let's work. And I'm like, damn it. Okay, let's work. This is gonna be interesting. So we went straight to it, and the case was actually really interesting. That's why I wanted to share it with you. There is a huge manufacturing company here in Russia, which is Danaflex. They manufacture a lot of stuff that you put food in, for cats, for people, and they have like nanotechnology to create different packages. And the company has been running for 20 years, and their CEO and his father actually are still in the company, and his the CEO's kids also work in the company, so they have strong family culture. And I was asking, like, why do you need stories for? Like, what's the big deal? And she said, we already have a strong culture, but now we need to make sure it stays as we go, because they were experiencing like rapid growth throughout the years. And we thought that it's a good idea to make it like more visible, because there was a gap between people who were there in an organization for 20 years and people who were like for 1 year. And that's a huge gap. And we can, make it smaller. So what we began doing and this is something you could pray for, with the support of the CEO, we started exploring how stories can help them work. And we began the process by eliciting and recording the stories of the CEO of the company. And she said, well, could you send me some materials so I can, prepare him for the meeting? And I thought I would just send him some questions based on the topics we wanted to elicit stories from. But then again, I thought, how can I help him? And I created a sort of a memo. I'm going to show it to you in Russian. But the thing is, we had several parts of the memo, and I thought I would structure it as a letter. So it has like, dear blah, blah, blah. My name is Artyom, and I'm a consultant, and I'm here for, and we need this because. And I gave him several reasons. I gave him like 3 points of how to work with stories, and how we're not looking for Hollywood dramas. We're looking for life stories and small moments. And then I described him several questions, like out of the blue, just reflect on them. And turned out that he was really into it. And he told a lot of stories about his subordinates, about the processes. Like one of the stories I still remember was when they were on a huge project, which they called Everest, because it was that big. They were creating a new packaging for Mars. And the people at Mars, they invited the key technician in for an interview and asked him a question like, how many blah, blah, blah do you need to take to make 2 blah, blah, blahs? And he's like, oh, maybe 5. And they look at him and go like, well, at least 14. And he just stares at them like a deer staring at a car. And he's like, he feels like he's a newbie compared to them. And over the next couple of weeks, he spent like 24/7 with technicians and got really so into it that he was really more proficient than them in that matter. And he started giving advice. So he was really pumping up his gears and learning very fast. And he, as a CEO, was really proud about this kind of behavior. So that was one of the stories of a proud moment. And of course, they won the project. And of course, Mars has signed up the contract with them. So after we gathered these stories, we had like support, but then we needed to get other people on board, other opinion leaders on board. And it came time for a new invitation. So to invite them into the process, my partner from the company, she said, why don't we use an email and just, ask them if they want to? But I said, why don't we make it a bit more sophisticated? And we filmed a small video with me as a speaker who will be interviewing them. And we outlined the process. So let me just share, because why I'm sharing it with you, because based on the feedback, a lot of them agreed after watching the video through. It's not until they watched why they should participate and what's the plan, they didn't agree. So it was really a major part. So the core of this video was that we told them why should we work with stories overall, and how a story is something tribal, and it's connected to us deeply, and it's in our culture. And in this flick, I shared with them a case based on the work the group called The Storytellers, guess what they do for a living, did at Wynn Hotel Los Angeles. I guess some of you know this case when they worked with culture and raised client centricity with basically working with stories. And then, of course, I shared the Everest story that we just gathered, like in his voice. And a lot of people agreed. And what we outlined for them was a core simple idea that was threefold. First, we said, in a series of interviews, we will collect stories about the kind of behavior you as a leader are proud of, truly proud of. By systematically telling these stories, we will inspire people to act this way. And this will lead eventually to strengthening the culture. So these 3 points were like driving us home, and we secured like 20 people. The core goal is, the core thing is, it was closer to the end of the year, and they had really a huge overload, but they didn't have any time to like educate themselves in storytelling. And we still needed material. So we needed their stories. And what we could do interviews, but not individually, but only in groups, because it was really a tight deadline. So we didn't train people in storytelling. Like we did zero. Luckily, people can tell stories without us telling how to tell stories. Just don't tell it to anyone. So to prepare this process, I thought I would, warm them up a little bit, because out of the blue, asking a story eliciting question may sometimes be difficult, and they will still slide into saying something abstract. So instead, I went straight for abstractions. I said, before you participate in this interview, in this group interview, I want you to answer two questions. And those worked really well. So the first one was, fill in the gap. I believe that we were able to achieve such great results, and they've been market leaders for 10 years, because every person in our team, la-di-da, And basically what that gives us is it gives us an assumption which is grounded in stories. And the only thing we needed to do then was ask, well, where did you witness that? And that's it. They didn't know, they didn't need to, to prepare this story. That was something they truly believed in. And the second one was even cooler. If every employee will blah, 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 then our company will continue to grow and take leadership positions. So it's an aspirational thing, but something they hope for. But let me share something else with you, because that's a crucial part to this case. When we started interviewing, suddenly we as a team realized that there are two kinds of people there. First ones that were like experienced guys from like 5 to 10 years of tenure in the company. And they did a terrific job of telling a lot of stories. Like this time when a client asked to send over several more trucks in 4 days, and to contrast the amount of days it takes usually to load this kind of this number of trucks is 14 till 20, and they asked for 4. So this woman, she went to marketing, she went to production, she went to technicians, and everyone was really on board. They worked their asses off, but they managed to pull it off. And then half a year later, one of their trucks, for totally another deal, but the same client, got stuck in the snow. And what the client did was he signed all the papers for the date that they actually missed. But on paper, everything was clear. Nobody could have ever, nothing to see there, no mistakes. And the client was like, yeah, of course we will sign anything for you. So that's a partnership spirit, like an exchange that they built. And those stories were great. But some people really started messing up the process because they were so into the company in the old days. They started telling great stories, but they ended like, well, yeah, the good days were the old days. So never mind. And that just gave me the chills because I didn't know how to, to drive it forward. And what I did, thankfully, those were group interviews. Right out of the gates, I started asking the ill-experienced people, like, where did you see such things manifesting themselves right now in the company? And the funny thing was, one of the really most experienced, she's 23 years in the company. She was there with the CEO before the company was founded. She told a story of how the CEO's father came to her with a book with several bookmarks, and he said, read this. I want to discuss it with you. And he's like, every morning he went to her office and said, like, are you ready? Oh no, okay, not yet. Okay. So and he continued to frustrate her, and she was like, okay, I'm gonna read it. And he had lines underlined for her specifically in the book to take notice of. And she told the story, and she said, well, it's not like that anymore, and it's a pity. And one of the younger guys, who's like my age, 20, 25, he says out of the gate, he says, well, that's not quite true, because we 6 months ago, we established a WhatsApp group and we shared books there, and we underlined stuff for each other to read, and we actually tag each other. And she's like, wow, why am I not there? And he's like, I don't know. Come join me. Here's the link. And immediately the story process began to flourish. And I'll just share with you 2 voices of the people who really outlined how the process went. It's going to be in Russian, but this time with subtitles. So this is an interview in pair, but let's just, watch it for a little bit.
Если честно, я не ожидала, что я смогу выдать столько историй, потому что я до конца нашей встречи, у меня не было ни одной записанной истории. Я, конечно, так наметки себе сделала, потому что у меня было ощущение, что они все какие-то такие незначительные, несмысловые какие-то, что ли. Вот, поэтому мне было интересно и приятно, что в процессе общения, оказывается, рождаются воспоминания об этих историях. Я думаю, что мы все отработали.
Это точно.
Я думаю, что для нас с Еленой тоже, да, мы сейчас проговорили. Называется по-английски commitment дали, да? Да, когда ты как бы сказал, какая у тебя компания хорошая, да, и это осело в подкорке. Даже вот вы сказали, что у вас там много групп, по 4 человека, то есть это такой правильный прием для того, чтобы эти 4 человека в каждой группе, послушав друг друга, поняли, что прекрасная компания, вот, буду здесь еще дольше и лучше работать.
So that was kind of an additional benefit, which we didn't totally anticipate, but we expected it in some way or another. So what was funny about that was the project went on, and we were really doubting that it's gonna like fit with the company. We thought maybe they wouldn't be so inspired, and they will just create a library somewhere on the web. But the HR director and the people who were really taking notice of the interviews, they were really inspired by the process. And eventually, HR director came back to me, and she showed me the pictures of how it looked like in the company. And I just wanted to share this with you. This is the cafeteria and the grand entrance, and they had like these QR codes leading to audio stories all around the factory. And what was the main result for me in this case? That was that, first of all, the project continues this year. So after like 3 successful months on the project, we have a plan for a year now. So first we will gather the stories of the new employees. Then, since it's the birthday of the company in June, we will gather the stories around birthday. And since it's the 21st birthday, the themes will be around now we can do stuff, or like now we're able to, being grown up, all grown up and stuff. And closer to the end of the year, of course, stories that help us, connect the results we had in mind and the results we have on hand. And they actually had this one fun request, which was, why don't we use some stories in December to share some Christmas magic? Because in any manufacturing, there's a moment of pure magic, which nobody can, totally be conscious about. And it just happened this way, and it's miraculous, etc., etc. So why don't we create something like that? And that's a result for me, because I have work to do this year. But for them, the result was that people got really inspired. And a lot of people participating in that project were telling their teams like, guys, I didn't even rehearse. I didn't do stuff for that interview. I just came there and I just shared. And one of the results that was like pleasing to know of was that the new employees started asking like, where did that happen? Like, do you have any more stories like that? And it triggered these kinds of warm moments between the younger generation and the older folks. And that's a kind of a sweet spot we want to reach. So in terms of engagement of employees, they will have a question like a survey going on in the middle of the year. So we will check if it worked. But as we know, there are many factors impacting engagement, and there's no straight correlation of how many stories you record and how much the engagement scores are. Because if there would, we would be all rich as hell. But never mind. So I think this case taught me one thing, was that any project is really successful because when there is support from the top floor, which is quite obvious. But even if people really miss the old days and they miss something that they had in the old days, it doesn't mean that it's not there in the company. Maybe they just don't see it. And like, it's a point of connection. So I like this project, and I hope you enjoyed this small share that I had. So if you have any questions, I'm really open for them or for discussion. Thank you so much.
Artem, thank you so much. I think you have a great opportunity to move forward with this. And I had a thought when you were saying, when you go to the anniversary side, is to do a look back, because keeping those stories living on, if you ask people what stories stayed in their mind that they heard about, it gives that person another additional shout out and keeps the thread of those connections going. So you are really onto something. And I love the fact you're like, don't get the secret out that people can tell stories themselves. It was priceless. So I'm sure other people want to speak up, because this inspires us all. It's layered, it's complicated, but then it is so achievable, and you can do it. and see the results of it in real time.
Carol, go for it.
So anyone who'd like to raise their hand and speak and unmute yourself.
I see Carol, yeah.
Okay.
This reminded me of Earl Bakken, who's deceased now, but he founded Medtronic, which was a big Minnesota company. And when it was small, he would meet with all the new employees and they got to know him and he would tell the stories first person, but it got so big. And so then they would video him telling the stories and have a group of new employees as part of their orientation. My questions are, what was the time frame that your project, the ideal time frame, if you maybe didn't get the ideal time frame, and what was your budget like to do this?
So I'll give you an estimate. The overall project, we had I guess 20 leaders, 20 opinion leaders. So about 5 or 6 interviews in groups, and they were really crammed into 2 weeks. So we had 2 weeks to host them and to cut it all in, to make it listenable, because that was actually the most cruel part, because sometimes we had to, misplace a middle and an end, because people don't tell in a structure, they just tell out of the blue. And sometimes it gave me goosebumps, because in the end of the interview, people said, "Oh yeah, I remember this small moment. It's not crucial," and it is. And so 2 weeks for that. And the budget, I can tell you the number, but it really doesn't correlate with international, because Russia is way behind in terms of consulting and learning and development prices. I had standard price for an hour of interview, so that the client could understand clearly. And I just doubled it for the interview hosting and interview like montage. So that's something they could relate to. And it, like, you could use your hours, so it's irrelevant to your clients. But in Russian, it would be something like
you don't want to give your secrets away to your competition or anybody else.
Yes, like I'm just trying to count,
yeah.
and that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no worries, we're good. Did you do the interviews, the group, in person, or were they Zoom? Were you still able to meet in Zoom to do this?
Yeah.
Oh, fair
So that abstract was the end of the interview.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, Valerie.
Thank you so much. I'm in cold Providence, Rhode Island right now. I'm curious, what was the deliverable that you said that you were going to give them? Did you give them back these? Because I came in a little bit late, and you might have said that at the beginning. But obviously it was more than the process that you took them through, that they got some sort of product. And what did that require of you?
Yeah. Great question. I didn't actually specify that, but we on paper, we agreed legally for conduction of 10 interviews. I guess it was like a package. But what we agreed upon with the HR director and the CEO was that I'm gonna send them a collection of MP3 files which are ready to play, but they can do they can make him look more stylish. And by the way, I have a short advice, because some clients don't want to have audio because it looks just it's nothing and some people talking. But I found this really cool thing. I'm just gonna share it with you tonight, because it's free and it's really usable. And mostly podcasters use that. So we used it to make it more watchable. So here's what it looks like. I'll just give you an example.
I really think there's a utopia built into Daniel's technology, and that utopia is a world in which everyone is learning. Everybody is flourishing.
So there's movement. There are words that are automatically transcribed. And in English, it works really better than Russian, let me tell you that. But it gives a feeling that you're watching and reading and listening at the same time. And it's really easy. I mean, the tool is called headliner.app. I'm just going to drop a link in the chat if you want to use it. I'm not a designer, by the way. It's and I could manage that. So that it really is powerful. So yeah, that's a broad answer to a really to the question. So I just handed them the audios, and given that she knew the power of the story, she was okay with just having the audios because she knew how to use them. Yeah. Anna Marie, go for it.
I was wondering if you have any future activities planned with them. I can imagine, from those clips that you were just sharing, this sense that they were going to start reminding one another, right, that they love where they work. I could imagine convening like a story happy hour. I don't know if that organization does things like that, but I was just curious about any sort of future story triggering work.
Yeah. So as I said, they have some ideas of where to go with that. Let me just quote the email I got from them. So we will start by the first thing this year is gathering the stories of the people who were nominated as best employees. Mm-hmm. To get to know them better. So their values, their purpose, their vision for the future personally, not as a company. Then in summer, stories around the happy birthday of the company. Then in autumn, stories of leaders about how much it is important to collaborate between the teams, not inside mm-hmm. one team. And finally, the stories about some results that were achieved this year, which were significant to the company. What is really interesting is that they are really open and understanding towards using the story for a task. So it's one of those cases where I see that educating clients on storytelling is way better than selling and upselling, because mm-hmm. when she said, right now I'm updating our onboarding, and I know that stories are useful there, I don't have to sell anything. I just get to work, because one mm-hmm. of the speakers on the conference just told it. And so that's one more thing for me, that one of the things that I was inspired to do this year based on that project. So to continue this kind of work with them and outside. So that's kind of the outline.
And knowing that people are watching in a very positive way, that they're noticing little things, because I'm working with a client right now and they're calling memorable moments. And the fact that other people are remembering throughout each quarter of what really stood and made a difference in their work is a powerful thing. It just changes about, instead of let me catch you when you're doing something wrong or when things don't go well, let me catch you doing something right, and let's give it a bigger shout out. And I think that is a big culture changer. You've given everyone a lot of thought to ponder. Mark, welcome. While we're waiting for another question, Mark, welcome. I see you joined us.
Thank you.
I guess we have another one from Carol.
Okay.
You mentioned the storifying your leadership, that you actually sponsored a conference. Have you thought about taking a segment of that for marketing to HR conferences or training conferences, or to help you find new clients?
Not quite, but I'm just that person who creates the content, and I fail to think where to use it. Honestly, I have it on YouTube on a playlist, and to be honest, it's way easier for me to host another conference than to market it somewhere. So, by the way, we're gonna host another one from the 18th to the 20th of May. We have a 3-day free-for-all conference that's called Storyfy Your Culture. So onboarding, vision, values, mission statement, everything about that this year. And again, free-for-all. We're gonna. I guess we're gonna have a shout out at SIO. So probably mm-hmm. you'll see a notice. So come by. gonna be awesome.
Absolutely.
Will it be in English?
Yeah, English and Russian. It's with translation, so I'll host in English. So yeah, Valerie.
Yeah. So lots of lessons learned for you and a good start and lots of inspiration for us. Now, do you think you're going to be migrating to any in-person events soon, or is it still, we're all tucked into our rectangles for the moment? I know, it's so painful. It's so painful.
I don't know.
I mean, there's positive negatives to each of those situations, what it enabled us to do.
I think we'll have offline, but given that some of my clients who were booked for January and February like gave me an email notice on Monday that April or March, please reschedule, as I'm like, okay, they know something that I don't know, and it's a pain because the budget is moving and it's creeping me out. But yeah, I think we will be there, but it depends. So the story of COVID isn't told yet.
Yeah. And one, like looking at the glass half full, when I mentioned this event, one of the amazing things was because it was virtual, there was perfect attendance. And that's something you don't see when you're in the, from being in HR and all of us who have come out of that sector, getting people to come, able to travel, make the schedule. And when I saw those numbers, I love the stories they were sharing, but when I saw the numbers coming up of how many people were in attendance, I was like, this is amazing. This is worth everything just to see that's possible. So I'm sure you're experiencing that. The ability to pull people from different parts of the country, wherever the employees are in the organization, is a powerful thing.
Yeah. I think Valerie has one more.
Oh, good.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm just so inspired and just loving what you did and the process and really, see it as valuable as intergenerational, you think about as you're in transition and just so many beautiful things, as you said, layered. And you talk really fast, so I want to go back to the process as I'm trying to keep my brain up. When you invited the leaders, so did you then develop specific other kinds of questions for the leaders to engage in? Because I did see, that letter, and you gave us a bit of a translation that you asked of the CEO, which was so wonderful, kind of just priming them, right, to remember, but they don't have to rehearse or write it or any of that. And so did you then give a similar thing to those identified leaders?
Let me just show it to you real quick. So we did a questionnaire with the 2 questions that I shared with you earlier. Yeah. And the questionnaire ended up being an Excel file, because I love Excel files. So those 2 questions are here.
Okay.
You can recognize them even though they're in Russian. And every one of them had some options. Like some people said professionals. Some people said growth with the people in the team. Some people said unique in their own way. So what I did, based on this thing, I created some story eliciting questions personally for each of them. So they had the basic part, which was a memo. Hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. Here's what we do. Here's why we do it. Here's some clues. And here's the story of your CEO that you can listen to once again, if you have missed it. So just, as a reminder. And then there are these specific questions. So the first one is typical for everyone. It says, remember a time when you witnessed a behavior of your employee or teammate and thought to yourself, if everyone would act that way, we will really become the leader of the market and the leading company. So that's like a really appreciative inquiry question. I love this approach. And then 3 questions were purely based on what they said. So there wasn't a corner they could run into because they gave me stuff. And that was like 180 at them.
I see.
So yeah, that was a process, and the memos were really met well.
Yeah. Oh no, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Artem, while we're waiting for someone to raise their hand, I think that you're having that conversation with the current generation incoming and the people who have had long time turns is such an important one about melding those together. And that a lot of times when companies get merged, as you know, people think, well, the past isn't respected or their work is not respected, and finding ways to bring them together and really creating a new story. And the practical parts, like what you're relaying to us today is the multi-generational aspects of what was in the past, what's current, and the people who are coming in now, they're going to be the old school people in a couple of years. So, building that culture, let's play it forward and start to appreciate what worked for us and what still exists and what we can aspire to. Is I think you're giving those company a very valuable tool to work with.
Thank you so much. Carol, I see you have another one.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, I'm wondering about the application when there's mergers of a small company gets bought by a big company, because I just ran into a situation where a lot of the small company employees left after a year because they felt that they had been swallowed up and their culture was lost. And that really hurt the people in the big company, because the people in the big company inherited these clients without the history of the people from the small company. So it was not the great merger that people thought it would be.
Yeah, those things are really hard to navigate. And we had one project in Academia Historia close to that, and there was an acquisition of a small Russian company by a European company that was like 10 times big. And what they did was their CEO was really in that mood. He understood, he was conscious about that happening to the small guys, and he really valued their clients, because the Russian agency he was buying, that was the market leader, who was like 80%. He owned 80% of the market in their sphere, in their topic. And what they did was they connected, and they tried to become conscious about the hidden rules of how we do things here by sharing. The listing question was, tell me a moment when you witnessed somebody of your colleagues act and thought to yourself, an outsider would think this is stupid, but that's how we do things here, and that's what brought us to be the leaders. So those stupid things, quote unquote, were the cultural things, cultural norms that were misunderstood. And by sharing these stories, the smaller guys tried to communicate it to make the bigger guys conscious about what to expect. And on the opposite side, they told the stories of the bigger company, like the perspective, and they tried to share through a story what it is like to be a bigger company, and why maybe some of these stupid behaviors would be not beneficial. And in this sharing, some of the smaller stories survived, some of the bigger stories survived, and there was just this merger. Some people left still for a startup because, well, you cannot do it. There's 0% chance that nobody lives. It's impossible. But that's maybe some kind of experience I can leave here from practice. So
Artem, we have Shannon's raised her hand, and then Andre, who wrote us a note, says he's new. He works in Syngenta, where he's in charge of developing and deploying infrastructure to help, etc. So why don't we speak to both of these folks and give them a chance to weigh in.
And we have Shannon,
we have some time.
Yeah. Okay.
Shannon,
Feel free to talk to Andres. I think that sounds really interesting.
Okay. Well, thank you, Shannon. We'll swing back to you.
I was just, saying hello. I'm new. This is my first SIO
You're welcome.
call. I was late to make things even more challenging. So trying to piece together what you were talking about, and as I started to make sense of it, it got really exciting. And like I wrote there, I'm not an HR guy or anything like that. I'm an engineer and I work with data. But I realize with each passing day that that 90% of my problems are really about storytelling. And, the technical stuff is overwhelmingly complicated, but it's irrelevant without, all the good stories in the right places that range from talking to my boss and his boss and the users of our systems and software developers that we want to keep motivated so that they're, missionaries and not mercenaries, and so forth. So I know that this group is a fountain to drink from. So just saying hello, and I want to be your, young apprentice. Well, not so young, but apprentice regardless.
Andre, that's brilliant. And there's so many great pull quotes from what you just shared in a few minutes. So we're going to quote you. Artem's like, Artem, you're going to find those words. We're going to pull it out there. Thank you. Shannon, we're back to you. Where'd she go?
Thank you for the opportunity to learn from you. I have many decades of nonprofit experience before I became a professional storyteller, or I guess you guys would call it NGO experience. And I'm trying to take on more corporate clients to fund my social justice warrior lifestyle. How do I position my my nonprofit work in such a way that corporate people would find that interesting or relevant?
So the work is non-profit, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's good. That's good. That's a good question. I think that's a good story question, because I always try to work around it with this kind of small trick. So a question that is in their minds begins with why. Why should we invest in your nonprofit? And that's the typical question. But the trick is it's difficult to answer with the story to that question because it's not full. So I would actually try and pose a question to you. So how would you end the phrase? Why should we, the leaders, invest into your nonprofit's ideas if? How would you end this phrase that is in their minds?
So and I can't answer that, but to clarify, I'm trying to say, how does my experience in the nonprofit sector translate to being able to provide expertise to corporations in their storytelling?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So that's different. So then the question would be, why should we listen to you if the context of the corporation is totally different from the nonprofit, and you just need a hell of a lot of stories that show that those two worlds are really the same. So maybe a moment when you realize that they are all the same somehow. Jules, yeah.
I could raise my hand for this one. You have something finding, and it builds a little bit on what Artem just said and then Andre said before. Your common thing is the human factor. When you're coming at a non-for-profit, you're used to working on a dime without funding, without staff, finding creativities to use talent. And it's a way to instill people that a lot of things are possible and be innovative. So I would speak to the problems they're trying to solve. Innovation. You don't need a staff of 10, and you're not going to get one in a nonprofit, even if you did. So like, how can you solve the problem? How can you're talking about difficult conversations and initiatives and pain points. So you are used to translating things that are sometimes tough into manageable, conversations. And good news sometimes comes in different packages. So I always say, as the outsider, you have a clearer view. When I show up in recruiting and I was the outsider, you see things differently because you're not as enmeshed. You haven't grown up in the banking. You're a fresh eye and a fresh perspective. So that's my vote for you. So good luck, and call me and let me know what you're doing, and we can talk more. So thank you, Artem, for letting me step in.
We have two more from Valerie and Carol, as you can see.
Oh, so many questions, and I realize I never introduced myself. I think I've been a member of this, but hardly ever able to come. A little bit opposite of Shannon. I've worked as a professional storyteller for a million years, and of late have been also running a nonprofit, but interested in that intersection, particularly around all the Jedi or diversity work that needs to be done in organizations at this time. So my question to you this time, this third time round, Arlem, is there was a lot of videotaping and people got to hear those videos. Was there ever a time that the whole group came back together to reflect on the stories that they'd heard collectively when we think about, storytelling in a family versus just kind of the watching and listening piece?
That's a good question. So we tried to record these stories as like we didn't record only the stories. It was more of a recording of a story circle. So one person told a story, then I asked him or her to tell me what the story is about for them, what trait of the company or what trait of people in the company does it represent. Then if some people wanted to, they commented on what they liked about the story, what was good about it, and so it was more of a reflection. So and then I cut out the rest. So it made more sense. So they didn't gather any time again. So the second reason why we did this was because we understood they are leaders and they can replicate this process if they enjoy it to the fullest. So we gave them the full round.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Carol.
so we have one last question,
One
and
last
I want Artem to take it home for us and wrap us up with a few other
Okay.
things we have to share.
I had
So
a
thank you.
suggestion for Shannon. We're in Black History Month in the United States. And one of the things that I've run into with corporations is they want a way to promote people that are labeled Black, and they want to gather a feeling of empathy for some of the interactions that may seem disrespectful to Black people, that we've internalized some of our racism. And that's that humanity piece. If you can touch people's hearts with stories, because it's one thing to have a principle, but when you see it in action, where you see there has not been equality or justice, and so that you don't have this feeling, there's been some feeling because of what's happened in Minneapolis, where there have been protests and there's been some violence, that people get scared instead of opening up their hearts. So that might be an in for corporations.
Well, thank you. Artem, do unmute yourself, because I'd like you to finish our session with, first of all, a big virtual applause session. So at the podium, cheers and bravo. We'd be standing up if we could. Secondly, do a recap because and share the dates of our next session. So we have it. We do have our February, thanks to your hard work and all the intercollegiate, intergalaxy cooperation we do about getting these things done. So share the next one and then recap what's happening with the conference and the pre-conference to the people who just joined later in the session, if you would. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. So the next lab we're having is on the 21st of February. And we are going to have Eamon O'Brien, who is a terrific speaker, and he is a public speaking coach, but with a deep understanding of storytelling. And why Eamon and why February? For the past year, he has been working on his new book. And for that book on storytelling, he is actually partnering with somebody, so they're co-writing the book. And they've been doing a lot of interviews with storytellers from around the world to gather their most precious insights from their practice. So he's going to share some of these insights that he gathered during these interviews. So 21st of February, 12 p.m. AST, just like always. And that's for the next month. And yeah, we will have Jerome DeRoy, CEO of Narrative, talk at the pre-conference of the NSN. Don't miss it. It's going to be a hell of a talk. Jerome is really a great speaker who combines personal stories with a great tone of giving cases and case studies about his client's project. So don't miss it. Save both dates. Even though I guess, Jules, do we have a date for the pre-conference bit?
We have the dates for the conference and the pre-conference. Where's my notes? The conference itself is 27th, 31st. Pre-conference is probably 25th, at the very least 25th and 26th. And we will have a firm time frame of when it is in March, when we've finished negotiating with all our colleagues about who shows up when. So it's going to be exciting, and getting people to come, up and coming professionals, colleagues. They don't have to be in HR. They don't have to be storytellers. Just bring them. We are all in communities and learning situations every day, and do invite them to be part of this. We have a chance to really do a swap. Andre, you hit a very good point. You came a little late, but this is how we are. We talk, we chat, we figure out our own issues while we're doing these labs. So it's all about collaboration. Great speakers, good people sharing, and that's what the mission of this place is. So more the merrier. So until the next time, we have 4 minutes. That's huge in podcast world. Arden, you want to work with those 4 minutes? What do you think? You've got stuff.
No, I guess we'll call it a day because I have this small call that I'm going to have.
Oh, okay. And then thank you for joining us. You got to come early, because the last time when Arden was here, he had his son earlier in the session. So you never know what's happening earlier on. Yeah. Terrific. Cheers, everyone. All the best. And do send me some notes and thoughts about other things we should be working on. Okay. Yes. All the best.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Arden?
Yes, okay. I'm here.
Yeah, I'm excited. I didn't use this for All About Me on the thing. Eamon O'Brien already read him a note because he's from Dublin. And I was like, my husband comes from Dublin, Ireland. So I was like, I gave him a hard time. I didn't do it in a groupie. I said, I have high expectations from you about storage. Considering what I've had to go through all these decades of being married to my husband, I mean, you'll see why in the book when I sent you. So I was like, so he hasn't responded yet. He's probably thinking, who is this nut job that wants to come talk to us? But the wit is brilliant. It's like going to an academy, I swear, and the wisdom. They just know how to frame a story and just fling it out there.
I mean, just the way he says the word whiskey in his stories. That's just the sole reason why inviting you is a good idea.
They can get away with blue bloody murder on what they're saying and how they say it, I swear. But it is great. I mean, I when I've been there, like, to be able to hold your own against something they've talked about, you're like, yes, score one for the team. So listen, you need to get some sleep. Nancy, thank you for joining us. Have a good week. And I think we had a nice mix of people. So as soon as I can download this thing, I will send it to you for your masterful editing. All right. Cheers, love.
Will do.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.